Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Main Street TV Local Sports Break. Hi, I'm your host, Ralph Miranda, and this is an exciting new adventure that our producer, Nathan Miranda, and I put together to cover high school football in Blount County. We're going to start out slow. This year, we'll be covering the Maryville High School Rebels, and hopefully next year, we're going to branch out and cover some of the other schools in Blount County, William Blount, Heritage, Alcoa, and then maybe even further out and cover some more outside of Blount County. But we're excited to get started with Maryville. And today we're going to talk to Coach Derek Hunt. We're going to talk a little bit about last season, a little bit about some of the challenges they faced there. Then, of course, we'll discuss their off-season program, some of the challenges that they faced as they entered spring football practice, and some of the things that they had to work on to kind of get their identity settled a little bit earlier this season as opposed to when it was settled last season. We'll talk about some of their players, some of the young boys that are going to be leading this football team, both offensively and defensively. And then, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the opening game tomorrow night as they kick off their 2023 season against the Heritage Mountaineers. And for those of you who think that Heritage is a pushover, let me tell you something. New coach last year. This is his second season. They came within one game of making the 5A playoffs last year, and they were in most of the games they played. So this is not your grandma's Heritage Mountaineer team. So it'll be a tough one for Maryville tomorrow night. But, of course, Maryville is going to be Maryville, and we look forward to that. So stay with us on the Main Street TV Local Sports Break as we review the Maryville High School Football Rebels preseason and get ready for their 2023 season. Okay, welcome back to Main Street TV and the Local Sports Break. It's our inaugural edition, and today we're joined by the head football coach of the Maryville Rebels, Coach Derek Hunt. Derek, good to talk to you again. Good to finally get back to coach and commentator type experience here.
It's football season, so this is an exciting time.
Well, that's exactly right. And you mentioned football season. I just got back from actually I went to a couple Braves Yankee games with Coach Gaylor. Okay. Awesome. And some of the Yankees, of course, are horrible. And I was reading some of the comments and they said Yankees are horrible. He goes, but it's football season. He goes, so there's nothing else to worry about.
Well, the Yankees being horrible is relative.
This is true.
They're not bad. True. They're just not the Yankees.
Well, you said it well. They're not the Yankees. That's exactly right. So, Derek, let's step back and start. Obviously, you guys went through last season, and every season has its own challenges and presents whatever new challenges are going to come up in the new year. So take me through at the end of last season when you kind of let the dust settle and you started to think about 2023 and you were getting ready for your off-season workouts and preparing for spring practice. What are some of the things from last year that you said, hey, we did well, we can build on? And then what are some of the other things that you thought, well, maybe we need to change a few things here?
Man, that's a great question. It's a loaded question because So at the end of every season, I meet with each coach on our staff individually.
Okay.
And just rehash everything. And it's more of a interview than it is me talking, Right. So I've got lots of questions and they're specific to each coach, because every coach has a different job. So, but a lot of the questions that I ask are, how can we change this or that, or how can we improve? And so I learn a lot from our coaches' observations, honestly. And then I try to take all that in and digest it into what can help the next season Maryville Rebel team. Okay. Looking at last year, it took us a long time to find our identity. Mm-hmm. That might have been the coach's fault. It might have been a product of the season. You can't ever predict who's going to get injured and when you're going to lose a guy. That's always tough. So, we kind of give ourselves a break for that. But the reality is we were playing our best football in playoff time. And while we did lose to 3 state champions, and then we lost a region game on the road to Cleveland. But my goodness, we were playing such good football.
You were.
The first 3 rounds of the playoffs. And honestly, we didn't play bad against Oakland. I think they had 2 or 3 runs that, they were basically untouched, long, huge plays.
Right.
Besides, you take those 3 plays away, and I know, you can't do that, but we've been saying that on the other side forever. But seriously, outside of those 3 plays, I felt like we competed. We moved the football on them. We turned it over at an unfortunate time, and but we still scored some points too. So it's not like we played bad. Oakland was just really dang good.
They were.
When I look back at last season, though, we've got to find our identity sooner, and that's always something that we've pressed this season. Is let's try to figure out who we are. And because in high school football, you can't go out, and it's not like college where you can go out and pick your players. You've got to adjust to your kids' strengths. And if you're doing the same thing year in, year out, well, then you're going to have down years because you're not doing something that your kids aren't good at. So that's kind of if there was one major theme this offseason for us, it was, hey, all right, let's really sit down and talk about who we think are going to be our best players. It was hard for us to do this offseason because we replaced 17 starters. Right. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Even now, going into the first week of the season, you're still trying to figure out, hey, who's our best 11 on defense or who's our best 11 on offense. So I think it'll take us a few weeks into the season to figure out who the best 11 are. But we focused on what can we do to give our kids success early in the year.
I think you answered the question I was going to ask about identity, really well. About you got to figure out what it is your kids do well, and so what when you finally found your identity last year, what did you think it was? And then on the flip side, what do you think it will be this year?
Yeah, well, last year we became a Big Ten offense. First time,
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
That's right. Yeah, for the first time in. I don't know, in a while, probably at Maryville. We've gotten some pro sets always, but it's been a while since we've really just gotten since we played box football,
Right.
Now, listen, it's fun as heck.
Right.
If you can execute it and you've got the guys that can do that, it's still great football.
Yes.
But for so long, we've been able to spread and be very multiple. Sometimes you have that tight end body that can split out, but then also play in the box and hold his own. You don't always have that, though.
Right.
Can the quarterback run effectively? Last year, we had Matthew Clemmer, who just a really good athlete, strong arm. But we also had Noah Vaughn, who was probably if not the best running back in the state, big offensive line. So, and Matthew was very comfortable under center. And we didn't learn that until early in the year.
Right.
So Matthew kind of moved over to us in the spring before the summer. So we didn't have him very long to kind of figure out, hey, here's what he's best at. We didn't play William Blunt. We had never played him, so that's where he came from. We didn't know much about him other than he was talented. So we got under center a lot more last year. We ran the football downhill, tried to take shots, at key moments, but we were a Big Ten offense, Ralph, and that was new for me. It was new for some of our coaches, and so probably that is why it took us so long to really catch our stride. Now, I think going into this year, I think you'll see more Maryville of old, and we'll probably take what we did good last year and keep it. But hopefully expand on it and just get better.
You talked a little bit about Noah Vaughn, and obviously he was a tremendous running back. And then at Gage Ledoux as well. So you had kind of a 1-2 punch last year for a long time until Noah got hurt.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about how you think that affects a running back. When you have 2 guys that complement each other, it takes a little bit of the pressure off both of them, right? But then when one of them gets hurt, the other guy kind of has to become the bell cow, right? So how did that all play? Was that a little tough in the transition for Gage, or was it something that you kind of made a little easier for him with the way you schemed the offense?
Yeah, so really wasn't worried about Gage, because Noah was so good, it was hard to take him off the field. We knew how good Gage was.
Right.
And Gage played fullback and kind of that slot receiver for us while Noah was in the backfield. And Gage played some running back too, probably not enough.
Right.
Probably could have played Gage more in the backfield. But then again, it's like, well, Noah's standing over here next to him, and he's literally the best spark in the state. So it was hard. That was tough. When Noah went down, that changed who we were for sure, because we relied so much on Noah to make plays for us. But this actually helped us figure out when Gage was when obviously when Noah got hurt, that really stunk, because Noah, I thought, was going to break some records last year had he stayed healthy, and he was phenomenal. When Gage moved back to the running back, that was the easy part. Okay, Gage is moving back to running back full time. That was the easy part. The hard part was figuring out who's going to replace Gage.
Right.
Because at the same time Noah got hurt, Eli Elkins, who's our starting tight end, got shut down for the year.
Right.
With a knee. So so we went in 1 week, we went and basically had to change who our H/slot was, and also who our hand down tight end was. And we turned to 2 sophomores, Bryce Davis and Jonah Arms. And my goodness, they were phenomenal the last 3 games of the season, stepping into a role that they, Price was a running back that we moved to Gage's position. And then, Jonah had played tight end, but not a lot. He played more linebacker than anything.
Right.
So, but we stuck him in those roles, and they both had big plays. The last 3 weeks of the playoff, both of them scored touchdowns. Both of them caught passes against Oakland in critical moments. And we're talking about 15-year-old sophomores doing that in the 6A playoff. So that was pretty special. That was pretty cool.
Another exciting feature that we'll be unveiling on our Main Street TV local sports break is the question of the week. Each week, we'll be choosing one question submitted by you, our viewers, to ask Coach Hunt. To submit your questions, subscribe to Main Street TV on YouTube and comment on this or any other of our local sports break videos, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram and comment on any of our local sports break posts. Then tune in each week, Thursdays at 7 p.m. on our Main Street TV YouTube channel to catch the new episode and maybe hear your question asked on the air. Okay, so let's go to spring practice. Give me an idea of your level of what you felt going into spring practice and what you needed to work on, and coming out of it, going into your summer workouts. How fulfilled did you feel that you got everything done that you wanted to?
Yeah, the biggest thing going into spring practice was competition. We needed, with replacing as many guys as we had, we didn't just want to go into it and say, all right, well, here's who we're going to be counting on to replace those guys. We wanted competition. We really wanted, instead of just having 17 new guys, we really wanted about 30 to go compete for those 17 spots. And I think we got that. I really think that we kind of dipped down to say, hey, you young guys who in years past, there might have been a senior ahead of you where it was tough. And honestly, Ralph, just to touch on that for a second, that's one of the things at Maryville that I love the fact that we're developing kids, and, you might end up playing more seniors and juniors, but not always. If the best kids are freshman or sophomore, I think we've proven we'll play them. But at the same time, some sophomores are complacent in that if there's a senior in front of them, they're like, well, I'm just going to play JV this year. And we challenged a lot of those sophomores this year, rising sophomores, current freshmen during spring practice. The job is yours to take, And so that was great, because I think it put a vision in some of those younger players' minds that, if they really work hard over the offseason and summer and do what they're supposed to do, they've got a chance to be the guy. And so I think that created more competition, and that was the whole goal going into spring practice.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit. You mentioned some of your players already. Let's give a little bit of shyness and brightness on those guys. Give me some of the guys that you're going to be counting on this year, the guys that you feel are going to be the leaders of your football team, the ones that are going to help that identity come through. Talk about as many of them as you want.
Sure. Well, and I'd love to talk about our whole roster because they're all worthy of it, in my opinion.
I know.
We've got some great kids, and top to bottom,
Good.
and it takes every single one of them. You know, you've been around football your whole life, so I know you realize it's the greatest team sport ever invented. And
No question.
From a scout team, fifth string, all the way to the best player on the team, it takes everybody.
Yes, it does.
We truly believe that. Offensively, we'll start with Gage because we're going to go as he goes. You know, I think he's got a chance to prove that he's one of the best running backs in the state this year. He's just a phenomenal kid. Quarterback wise, we've had a competition all off season. We'll see how that shakes out going into this week. But Casey Cobble and Graham Coulter, two juniors, have really competed at that position. Britton Barrett's a receiver that I feel like has taken a step forward this offseason. He's a junior as well, but has a chance to have a great year. Zeke McCoy comes back as really our only receiver that's had any experience. He started a few games last year, you know, in games that he didn't start, he got to play. So he'll be in the mix at receiver as well. You know, tight end wise, Eli Elkins, finally healthy. He's battled knees for 2 years in a row, and he looks really good. I mean, I just can't be more excited about the year that I think he's going to have. And I think he'll have a chance to play in college just because he's such a good looking prospect for a tight end in the high school game. So, and then up front, you know, Blake Heckman, Logan McGlamory, and Alex Boyd are our returning starters. So anytime you can return 3 out of 5 on your O-line, you'll take that.
Yes, sir.
So good kids. That's where football's starts and ends on the line of scrimmage. And so, you know, if we had to pick guys returning, we'd pick all offensive linemen for sure. Defensively, all right, so this is where we replaced 10 out of 11. Hutton Jones is the lone returning starter on defense. He's a corner. Ralph, if we had to pick one returning, he'd be at the top of the list just because of the poise that he plays with. He is a true Maryville Rebel in that plays with great poise. Gives his best effort all the time. He's a fantastic leader, super positive, high integrity, just everything you could ever want in a high school football player. And so, you know, he's been phenomenal as far as understanding the role that he needs to take on the defense, you know, but everywhere else is up for grabs. But there's some names that I think people are going to learn really quickly. I think Jack Carter and Sam Young on the defensive line have a chance to have phenomenal seasons. I think they can be good players. You know, so elsewhere in the secondary, you know, Nolan White, Royal Curtis, and then of course Zeke McCoy will play some defense too. I think those guys will help Hutton in the back end, you know, trying to you know, prevent big plays. That's the biggest thing, right? Prevent big plays. But then at linebacker, so that's been the biggest, in my opinion. That's been the hardest position to feel comfortable at. Yeah, you know, it's just when you have that much turnover, it's certainly concerning. But I think a couple names that stand out: Caleb Reeves, who played some fullback, but we moved him to linebacker. Hunter Olivet's played linebacker the whole time, so he's a senior who I think will have a great chance of being a starter for us. And then Matthew Covert's taken over that middle linebacker spot. And Matthew, you know, plays with his hair on fire. So it's what you want from a guy on defense.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I thought I saw Gage Ledoux maybe get a few reps at linebacker time to time.
Yep. And you know, here's the deal: he's hard to keep off the field, and I think you know, we've got to be more committed to playing our best players. And so, you know, you'd love to be at 6A. You'd love to be able to have 22 complete different starters. But the reality is in high school football, you know, when you're committed to winning every game and there's one guy who can help you on both sides and not lose the fatigue battle in 4-quarter games, you know, we got to be willing to do that some.
How difficult is it? You know, you and I have talked about this quite a bit over the last few months, but, you know, a lot of these high school teams now, you see the spread offense so much, right? I mean, guys are putting receivers all over the place, 4 wide, 5 wide. That puts a lot of pressure on your defense, obviously, and it puts pressure on you guys to come up with the right scheme to defend that. How tough is it to get your players not only in the right position, but to kind of balance that mix between lineup and technique versus, hey, the game is still running to the football and tackling. You know what I mean? So how do you put all that together?
Yeah, and you know, from a from a nuts and bolts standpoint, the game of football will always be about blocking and tackling and running to the football. On defense, running to the football, all 11 guys, the gang tackling type aspect is super important. I think this is just my opinion as a coach, but I think football, it's probably more at the high school level, but certainly I think in college some too, not at the pros. They don't miss tackles at the pros. But I think we've gotten away from being so good at fundamentals, everybody, because of because schemes have changed so fast that we're trying so hard to keep up with everybody else to defend that you lose time on tackling and blocking on offense and that kind of thing. So I think it's become more maybe flashy. It's become more about scheme than it is about fundamentals and technique. And, that can be, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. It's just different. It's not what the game was built on, which it was obviously built on more of a rugby style type game back in the day, but it's definitely not done that in the pros. Cause like I said, those guys, they don't mess up. They don't miss tackles. It's unbelievable when you watch it.
Well, that's why they're professionals. Right. But I think, and they suffer a little bit. You see some fundamentals lacking a little bit, but not to the level that we're discussing. But no, I thought that's an excellent point. I really do. I think the fundamentals of football have kind of lost a little bit of the forefront, with all these schemes. But I felt like if you're, and you can give me your opinion on this, when you're running all this spread stuff, they're going to get some yardage, but if you can get to the football and bring the guy down, then you've pretty much done your job, as opposed to letting him break away and run for another 50 yards.
Yeah. I mean, that's the name of the game, running the football.
Exactly.
Hang on for dear life and hope that helps coming. And, with the spread offense came the odd front look, I mean, 20 years ago, everybody we saw played a 4-man front, 4 down. 4 or 5 years ago, everybody we saw played odd. You had 3 down, and then now everybody's got that guy that can do both. And so it's funny. It's so interesting how it's evolved.
And for those at home who may not understand that, give me your explanation of why are you saying what's the advantage of the 3-man front when you're playing these spread teams? Let's put it that way.
So teams that have enough linebacker-like bodies, or maybe they just don't have enough D lineman type bodies, they'll stick a 4th linebacker out there instead of a 4th down lineman. And so they're able to get outside linebackers, further out in space to cover more receivers. So teams that have 4 or 5 receivers, if you have 4 down linemen, that's one less body you have, in that middle area, which just creates grass and voids that, I mean, offensive coordinators will pick you apart if you just line up the same way nowadays, the same way every time. 20 years ago, it wasn't like that. Like when I played, you knew exactly where there was going to be a 3 technique or a 2 technique, or you knew exactly how they were going to line up every play. And it was just a matter of execution. Could you execute against them or not? And if you couldn't, they were going to win. And if you could, you had a great chance of winning. And I don't want to act like, everybody coaching now is a savant in the game of football. It has transcended over time, but when somebody comes up with a good idea, it spreads like wildfire.
Sure, it does. Yeah,
from the top down, or from the high school level all the way up. High school usually is the place where ideas are invented. And a good college coach, or somebody who doesn't have a lot of pressure on them and they can try stuff at the college level will do it, and then he'll get hired in the SEC to go do it, and then everybody does it in the SEC, and all of a sudden they're running. I'll never forget when Cam Newton went to the Panthers, and it's like now everybody in NFL is wanting a quarterback that can run read option, power read, and it took off for about 3 years. Then it started to pull back, because why? Because defensive coordinators are so stinking good. And the NFL, they'll figure you out in a heartbeat.
That's right. It's a game of adjustments. Yeah. And again, on the flip side of what you just said, again, for the benefit of those people at home who are going to be watching your games and probably have a lot of questions for you at times. I know you get a lot of questions from fans, I'm sure, but I understand the concept of why you'd like to have those extra guys in space when teams are widening widening players out there. But what's the advantage? And I think I know the answer to this, but let's say you press those receivers, and I know you got to have the right guys to be able to press them or at least put some pressure on them, and you rush a few more extra guys and maybe force the quarterback either to throw it early, throw it to the wrong person, or make a mistake, or even get to the quarterback. Is that too dangerous given those schemes, or is that also a strategy that could be employed?
I think it's a great strategy to use at the right time, and that's where coaches make their money,
Right.
But no pun intended there. Not very much money.
Right. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Right.
But that's against the right team with the right personnel.
Right.
Now let's back up. If you can play man coverage, that opens everything up. You can do whatever you want. It's if you can't, then you got to be creative. And so that's something that we've always toyed with, and we've had years where we're trying to play a lot of man, and some years we don't. It just depends on personnel. But yeah, when you can rush the quarterback, and you can do it at odd and even fronts, but then that makes things so much better. Now there's going to be years where you got to play so let's say you've got 3 linebackers and 3 down linemen. Here's another philosophy that I think a lot of teams use and that we like as well. If your 7th best box player is a D lineman, you're probably going to be in more 4 down fronts.
Right.
You don't want to keep your 7th best player off the field because, by gosh, we're an odd team. So we're going to play a linebacker who may not be as good as your 7th best box player. So that's another philosophy that I think is popular, and it makes sense. You want to play your best player. So you'll figure out how to be the best 4 down team that year. It goes back to high school. You don't get to pick who you got. So every year is different. And you got to look at it, in the offseason and say, hey, who's going to be our best 7 in the box? And if it's 4 linebackers, you need to figure out how you're going to rush the quarterback with 3 down linemen.
Let's talk about the Heritage Mountaineers. The Mountaineers, they've had some tough years, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think I'm right. Last year, they came within a game or two of possibly making the playoffs. I mean, they've turned it around. They're a better football team than they've been in the past. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that they're going to present for you guys tomorrow night.
Yeah, so much improved. Coach Joe Ossovet, their head coach, this is his 2nd season now. You can see the buy-in. You can see the execution. They were 1 game away from making the playoffs last year, and I want to say it went down to the last game. Even the games that they lost, they were in. And so I mean, obviously they're very much improved. They've got a quarterback who is a heck of a football player. Deck is his name, and he's tough. He's physical, big kid, can throw it. Scary thing about him is last year we got to play him. It was his first game with a new head coach and a new scheme. This year he's got a season under his belt.
Right.
Yeah, and then defensively, they fly around and do a great job, and they've got more size. They've obviously gotten more kids. They've been in the weight room, and so I think Heritage has a chance to have a really good year.
Yeah, I agree. And without giving away any secrets, which I know you won't, what are some of the things that you guys feel like you can maybe have a little bit of success with tomorrow night? I mean, some of the things that you'll do well and that you're going to try to execute.
Whew, good question. We're going to try to score touchdowns. We're going to try to
Thanks,
keep the other
Derek.
team from scoring touchdowns. No, um, you know,
Okay, thanks, Nick Saban. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, exactly. The biggest thing is without talking schematics,
Right, right.
we've got to find ways to build success or build confidence.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Too many. We've got so many new guys, and this will be their for a lot of them. This will be their first Friday night under the
Hmm.
lights,
Hmm.
because Jamboree doesn't count. And
No, it doesn't.
so you want to have good things happen to where we can build some confidence, and they feel good about what we're doing. The thing about it is Heritage, if you're not where you're supposed to be, I think they've proven that they can make you pay. With,
Right.
like I said, the quarterback that they got coming back and Coach Ossovet as a play caller, they can put you in a bind, do things that can hurt you. And so, if we don't play with confidence, if we don't play with that belief and kind of get down on ourselves, I think we're going to be in a ball game. I think we're going to be in a dog fight. So that's as a head coach, thinking about our first game in this 23 season with the new faces that we've got, I hope that early in the game we can do things that give our kids confidence to go execute and play really well. When I read the paper this morning, Coach Osvet was talking about how we know what Maryville's going to do. We just got to execute. And
Right.
some people might take offense to that. I don't. Maryville's not changed in a long time.
Right.
He's 100% right.
Right.
You don't have to be a football junkie to know what Maryville's going to try to do. And it's because it's worked for us for so long. And so we just want to be really good at it. And if we can build confidence and have success doing it, then, that's something that I'm going to be looking for and I'll be excited to see.
And I know you mentioned the two quarterbacks that you've had. Do you anticipate both of them seeing some playing time tomorrow night, or have you settled on one quarterback?
We've not decided yet. I know that sounds crazy, but we really haven't decided yet. So far, it made sense in the Jamboree to play two.
Right.
But it's not like, to me, and that's been a very popular question, and I get it.
Sure.
At the same time, it's not like we have a runner and a passer.
Right.
Both quarterbacks can do both things, and I think at a high level. And so, so I guess in a sense, it doesn't necessarily matter from an opponent standpoint. Hey, are they going to need to get more to the box to stop a quarterback run, or is this guy going to be throwing it deep? They both can do both, and so regardless of who gets the time at quarterback, I have a high level of confidence that we have a chance to be successful if we do what we're supposed to do.
Good. Last question. I know we talked about identity. We talked about, high school football players and what a good high school football player is or isn't, but leadership. Obviously, you got to have leadership on any football team, right? And it's always good to have that leadership come from your older guys if possible. So talk to me a little bit about the leaders on your football team and how comfortable you feel with them being able to carry these kids and your team through this season.
Yeah, so every offseason, Coach Cobble leads it. Coach Kenny Cobble leads this, and Coach Hendricks and I, try to play a big role in it as well. But we do a senior, basically leadership council, leadership training, and we have different folks, coaches, come and speak to them about different aspects of leadership. And one of the acronyms that we use is LEAD, LEAD.
Right. Right.
So use the word itself, and then it stands for loving what you're doing and loving your teammates, being a great teammate. The E stands for effort. We have to give our best effort in everything that we do. The A stands for attitude. What's our attitude like towards these things, and playing with great body language is such a big deal, especially in today's world. And then the D is discipline, showing up when you're supposed to, not missing a workout in the off season, the little things. So we talk about all that stuff. Some of our coaches get to go in and share about just one of those points. And so Coach Caldwell does a great job with all of our seniors. They hear that piece on, if we do these four things, you're bound to be a great leader. If you play with passion and love, and you have great effort and a great attitude every day, and then you take care of the details and you're very disciplined, that's the best way to lead, as opposed to, get your rear end out, somebody yelling and screaming. You don't have to lead loud. And I tell our guys all the time at practice, if you lead with urgency, I think urgency at practice leads better than anything else. If you practice with urgency,
no question.
That's the best leadership characteristic you can have for a younger player or even your teammates. So we talk a lot about that. Our seniors have taken that. We've had as good an offseason as we've ever had at Maryville, in my opinion, Ralph.
Good.
So
Good.
I think our seniors understand the importance of that, and I couldn't be happier with where they're at going into week 1.
Excellent. Well, I've been watching Maryville football now for probably 25 years or more. I've watched you play. I've watched a lot of young kids play, and that's what sets Maryville apart. That ability to always carry themselves in some of the categories that you just talked about. And sometimes, that's really all it needs. You got to just be able to get out there and do it. And
that's it.
And I know you will. Well, Derek, we wish you the best of luck tomorrow night. And we'll catch up with you again next week to kind of review that game and look forward to week 2.
Fantastic. Can't wait. Thank you, guys.
Hey, take care of yourself. And last question, any new coaching uniforms this year on the sidelines, or are you guys going to go with the same things?
We'll be the same thing. Yeah.
All right. I look forward to seeing it. Derek, take care. Be safe. Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care. Well, I hope you enjoyed the inaugural edition of the Main Street TV Local Sports Break with Coach Derek Hunt of the Maryville High School Football Rebels. We talked a little bit about last season, a little bit about their preseason this year, spring practice, some of the efforts that they've put forward trying to develop their identity for 2023. We talked about some of the fine young players that they've got, some of the young guys, the senior leadership, as well as some of the schemes that they'll be facing this year and what they'll be trying to get done. So all in all, a very good interview and visit with Coach Hunt. We talked about the Heritage Mountaineers, the team that they'll open with tomorrow night. And of course, we'll be back with Coach Derek Hunt next week as we recap the Heritage game and look forward to their home game with Knox Central on Friday night, August 25th. So make sure you stay with us next week as we recap the Heritage Mountaineer football game and look forward to Maryville's home opener against Knoxville Central on Friday night, August 25th. For Derek Hunt, for our producer, Nathan Miranda, I'm Ralph Miranda, and we'll see you next week on the Main Street TV Local Sports Break.